Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south. Breast is best, but should this young mum be banned from feeding her baby in a high street store?
Higher help, the plans for universities to get involved in running our schools. So, can it work?
A deadly visitor from overseas, the black widow spider found in a warehouse in Sussex.
And given a new life by Barnardo's, the abandoned children remembered and celebrated. Good evening. It's the most natural way to feed a baby, and that's why a mother from Parkstone near Poole says she's fuming after being asked not to breastfeed her child in a high street store.
Charlotte Stanbridge wanted to use an empty changing room in Zara in Bournemouth when a sales assistant said she couldn't.
Well, the store has since apologised, saying their employee didn't follow company procedure. With more now, here's Sally Simmons.
7-month-old Teddy was hungry. His mother Charlotte was shopping in their local Zara in Bournemouth with her sister, who asked if they could pop into a changing room to feed him.
And the woman on the desk just went, no. So he said, oh, OK, why? And she said, well, it's a changing room, so it's not really for that. You could try Costa over the road. I said, oh, normally I would, but I was just hoping to be a bit more discreet. And she said, oh, well, they have got a toilet.
The store have since apologised, spoken to the staff member involved and say their policy is that customers who wish to breastfeed their child should be supported by providing a safe and comfortable environment. What Charlotte told me she wasn't prepared for was over 1,000 comments on a newspaper website harshly criticising breastfeeding in public.
People need to be aware that it's not the end of the world and it's not dirty and the babies aren't sick. This is what people have been saying to me. Breastfeeding absolutely stinks. It smells disgusting. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near it.
It is against the law to discriminate against a woman who's breastfeeding in public, to ask her to cover up or to ask her to leave. On top of that, it quite clearly will cause distress, humiliation and embarrassment, and that's really not acceptable. Babies need feeding. That's just a fact of life.
Young girls need to be encouraged to breastfeed their babies. It's best. It's healthy and it's natural.
It wouldn't bother you or embarrass you?
No, not at all. No, I didn't see why it would, to be honest.
As a young mum at 21, Charlotte wishes she'd had the confidence to stand her ground at the time. The fact is, she shouldn't have to. Sally Simmons, ITV News, Bournemouth.
Well, as you might expect, lots of comments on our Facebook page. Kenneth Ewan says, I was brought up after the war. Most babies were breastfed and nobody took any notice. Let the most natural thing be and complain about something else.
Well, some viewers think she may have been blocking the changing room. Sonia Kellner, she writes, I would have got her a comfy chair and sat her somewhere else in the shop.
Rhoda Kirkpatrick says it's a mother's right to feed her child. When I was breastfeeding in Germany, one restaurant owner even got me a slice of cake and a drink. Very nice. Lots more people sharing their views for and against online. Thank you.
Now, our councils have issued nearly £1 million worth of fines to parents whose children have missed school in the past year. Families can be fined £60 if their child is absent without authorisation. It doubles if they don't pay within 21 days. In Hampshire, more than 4,000 fines were issued and 328 in Poole. Most of them were for term time holidays.
5 fire engines were sent to a sorting office in Gosport this morning following reports of a chemical spill. It happened at the building in Mill Road at 11:40. There was no threat to the public.
There's been mixed reaction to a government idea to get universities to help run schools. The proposal is for them to sponsor a local academy or set up a free school if they want to charge higher fees.
But several of our vice-chancellors say universities should stick to what they do best. Our social affairs correspondent Christine Alsford has more.
Well done.
Beerwood Primary School in Hampshire is part of a group of schools run by the University of Chichester.
Well done.
They say it's a setup that's a good fit because of the university's strong heritage in education and training.
We have 170 years of experience in training teachers. We know how schools work. We know how head teachers operate because we've trained them, and so there's a mutual benefit.
What I have found being the head teacher is that we have access to a team of staff who understand schools. It is their business and it is our business.
The government wants to make running schools the business of everyone in higher education, demanding that all universities sponsor an academy or set up a free school in order to charge higher fees. But not every university is convinced that bringing in their skills and experience is the way forward. The man in charge at the University of Reading is a former head teacher and was Ofsted's chief inspector of schools. Yet he's opposed to the idea of universities like his having to get involved in this way.
I'm concerned that running a school would be a diversion from that kind of core business of keeping UK universities at the leading edge across the world.
You don't want to do it?
I'd rather we didn't do it.
He says he wants to concentrate on what his university does best, building an international reputation with campuses across the globe, research, teaching undergraduates. His concerns are shared by the Vice-Chancellor of Oxford, who recently expressed similar views and said schools might know best how to run schools. And even in Winchester, where they're keen to establish several university-run schools, there are reservations about how it will work if it's enforced across the board.
For some universities like our own, like Winchester, it's absolutely right that we should be doing this, but maybe not necessarily for everyone.
Are we adding or are we taking away, James?
But if the proposals become law, higher education incomes in the future will depend on every university finding a way to make it work. Christine Osford, ITV News.
And in a statement, the Department for Education said there are already some excellent examples of universities sponsoring schools, and they have expertise that can really help improve our education system.
Now, are you using the same online password for your accounts? Well, police want to remind people not to after a rise in online fraud. In Dorset, for example, £8 million was stolen through cybercrime over the past year. 38% of us use the same password for lots of our accounts.
Now, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. So can you help pick up litter from the South beaches? Well, volunteers are being sought to assist the group Surfers Against Sewage and collect litter next week. Cans and bottles make up 40% of the rubbish on our shores. A list of locations, dates and times available on our website.
A black widow spider has been found at a warehouse near Gatwick Airport. The deadly bug came into the country in a box of aeroplane parts from North America. She was 4 centimetres long and had distinctive markings on her back and red markings underneath her body. Workers at the company Airfin managed to get her into a plastic pot. She's now being looked after at Drusilla's Wildlife Park.
Very nice. You're watching ITV Meridian. Coming up, the weather where you are, plus
uncovered the album artists whose sleeves have struck a chord with fans.
And for more on all of our stories, you can head to our website. You can give us a call on 0808 1010 095 or get in touch via Facebook or send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
The family of a Dorset soldier have received an unreserved apology from the Royal Military Police for failing to properly investigate her allegations of rape.
Corporal Anne-Marie Element was found hanged at Bulford Barracks in Wiltshire in 2011 after suffering bullying within the regiment. 2 years before, she claimed she'd been raped by 2 colleagues in Germany during a drunken night in barracks.
No charges were initially brought by RMP investigators. The regiment now says the 30-year-old deserved better. Earlier this year, 2 former corporals were acquitted of rape after a second investigation by the RAF police. Today, Anne-Marie's family gave their reaction to the apology.
I'm pleased that they finally acknowledged that they did fail her, and I do say that with a heavy heart. But finally, they've acknowledged that there were serious failures around that investigation. If things had been done differently, then maybe we wouldn't be in the position that we're in today. And we had to fight for 5 years almost to get her the smallest bit of justice that we could get her.
A final decision over a new runway for Heathrow or Gatwick may not be finally taken until the spring of 2018. It's been revealed that while the government will reveal its preferred option expected next week, there will be a year of consultation before a final go-ahead.
Well, today MPs said the news showed new indecision by ministers. Others said the consultation was always going to take place. Our transport correspondent Mike Pearce is here now. Mike, Theresa May did indicate a final go-ahead would be made this month. So is there then a fresh delay?
Well, as with ever with this story, it's always controversial, isn't it? Well, I think the problem here is that the Conservative Party conference, we were all told there would be a decision. I think people interpret that to mean it would be a final decision. But what it doesn't mean is the bulldozers going in. It means the start of the process. And I think we always knew there would be this consultation period. Perhaps we didn't know just how long it would be. And that's why people are now saying there is a delay and the confusion and the controversy goes on. This was the exchange in the House of Commons earlier between the Prime Minister and the former Transport Minister, Theresa Villiers.
Why attempt to build a new runway at Heathrow when we could deliver one at Gatwick in half the time, for half the cost and a fraction of the environmental impact?
Prime Minister. Well, can I assure my right honourable friend, no decision has been taken on the site of airport expansion in the South East. As she will know from her previous background, the Davis Commission said that airport capacity in the South East should be expanded. The government accepted that argument. The Davis Commission identified 3 sites, all of which they said would be credible and deliverable, and government will take a decision this month.
So a final decision, according to the Prime Minister, still hasn't been made. Is it likely to be Heathrow?
That's what everybody's saying now. I think looking at the evidence, looking at what the messages that are coming out from government, it looks like Heathrow's third runway will get the go-ahead. This is what campaigners from the airport told us earlier.
This decision about collective responsibility and allowing ministers who don't like the idea of Heathrow to opt out of the decision, I think does mean that a green light is going to be given for Heathrow probably next week. It'd be a surprise if it went for Gatwick.
So the million-dollar question, be it Gatwick or Heathrow, when's the new runway going to be opening?
Well, despite all the controversy today about delays and the consultations, what the airports are saying is they still believe they can get the new runways open on time. 2025 is what they say.
2025. Mike, thank you.
Ambulance staff are risking serious injury or even worse after a dramatic rise in the number of assaults they have suffered.
ITV News can reveal attacks on ambulance staff in some parts of the service have doubled in the last 5 years.
Figures show that 111 staff with the South Central Ambulance Service, covering Berkshire, Bucks, Hampshire and Oxfordshire, were assaulted by members of the public over a 1-year period.
126 staff working for the South East Coast Ambulance Service in Surrey and Sussex were attacked.
Also targeted, 130 staff working for the South Western Ambulance Service in Wiltshire and Dorset.
Richard Payne has been speaking to one worker who herself was attacked.
They're the people we turn to when most in need. But in an effort to save the lives of others, growing numbers of ambulance staff are putting their own lives at risk. Karen Lott has answered hundreds of emergency calls over an 8-year career. But she'll never forget the time she and a male colleague were sent to a report of a man lying unconscious on the ground.
It happened in a blink of an eye. He got up with such force and aggression. He kicked me so hard in my groin that reduced me to my knees. And with that, he then kicked me in my back and he kicked me in my shoulder, which sort of rendered me really incapacitated to a certain point. My colleague, he started then to attack my colleague, and he got bitten and punched. Then my colleague was shouting for help for me to try and restrain him, which we don't restrain people, but we had to for fear of our life.
A life Karen genuinely feared she would lose that night. With the help of police, the crew were rescued, but their ordeal was far from over.
You just don't feel it should be you in that place because, you know, we go out to help other people, and it's just getting to be a point, you know, that this is happening more often as well as verbal abuse as well as the physical attacks. They took a crew off the road that night because of that attack. We have no protection whatsoever from the general public apart from the police, but sometimes it's too late. In my case, you know, the time they got there, the physical assault had happened to myself and my colleague.
For some who seek to help patients, only to become patients themselves, the assaults become too much, with the service having to accept the resignation of good, experienced staff.
It's made me question whether I want to stay in this job. It used to be a job for life, but I don't think it is anymore now. I think because it's obviously the abuse is a lot worse and people are questioning. My colleagues have even said, you know, they're fed up and just they go home and it shouldn't be like that.
So great is the threat on the road, new ambulances have multiple CCTV cameras fitted and panic alarms in an effort to protect them from violent patients. This is the view from one of the CCTV cameras, gathering evidence that could be used against patients in court.
The expectations of people have changed as well in that, you know, when we came, they were grateful. Nowadays is where have you been, what you're going to do for us, and if you don't do what we want, we'll sue you type of thing.
Karen and her colleagues say only when public appreciation of the job they do improves will their career be one they can feel safe in once again. Richard Payne, ITV News.
Now, the children's charity Barnardo's has got charity shops right across our region, Southampton, Basingstoke, Brighton, and as a charity has been helping others for the last century and a half.
Well, now as part of Black History Month, it's opened up its archive with an online exhibition featuring youngsters it's helped over the years. Kevin Ashford has been to hear one man's story.
This is a picture when we lived at Fulcombe of myself, my brother John in the middle, and my father.
Ray Mills, who lives near Aylesford, was taken in by the Barnardo's charity as a baby, the result of an extramarital affair between a white mother and black father. After a short spell in a Barnardo's home, he was raised by a foster family.
To me it was a wonderful, wonderful upbringing, and even when I met my real mother, I will say I felt truly blessed, especially on reflection, that I was brought up the way I was. Now this isn't a slur at my mum, but she obviously had it very, very difficult, and I think I had a much more fortunate upbringing.
Now, Ray's story is just one of many that have been put together in an online collection by the Barnardo's charity. And that's been possible because of the remarkable archives that have been kept by the organisation.
As the children came into Barnardo's care, an admission history would be taken.
Even during Victorian times, the children who were helped by Barnardo's had their photos taken and other details recorded by the charity's founder, Thomas Barnardo. Unusually for his time, he was prepared to help all youngsters.
Barnardo was very keen to take all children, regardless of their background, culture, you know, ability, disability. He publicised that as well. So no child was ever refused admission, and that's sort of borne out in the records, really.
It's a wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate our work today with the black communities. So we work right across the UK through 960 services, and we engage with black communities, black children, black families, foster carers, our volunteers, and they make us what we are today.
Ray Mills is in the process of writing a book based on his life story, a story shaped in no small part by the charity that helped him. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
OK, sport now. There was action in the Championship and League One last night, but it was a bit of a mixed old bag of results for our region's teams.
Brighton made it 7 games unbeaten with a 1-0 win over Wolves, taking them to 3rd in the Championship table, while Reading dropped down to 10th after losing 2-1 to Aston Villa.
But it's with the in-form Albion where Emma Wilkinson begins our roundup.
Brighton continued their good run of form last night. Anthony Knockaert headed well over the bar early on, but it wasn't long before Sam Baldock headed home. His 3rd goal in 3 games. Wolves had their chances but couldn't find the back of the net. The Seagulls go to 3rd in the table, 3 points off league leaders Newcastle. Reading were looking to defend their unbeaten championship home record against a struggling Villa side. The visitors opened the scoring in the first half, but the Royals were awarded a penalty early in the second. The chance was almost wasted. Thankfully, Jan Kermorgant was on hand for the rebound. Both sides pressed for the winner, but a 90th minute foul in the box by Liam Moore handed Villa the win. In League One, Swindon secured a much-needed 3 points at home to Rochdale, Darnell Furlong giving them the lead. Shortly after, a great through ball allowed Nathan Delfonso to make it 2. Town were let off the hook in the second half when Ian Henderson's penalty was saved, but Nathan Thompson soon wrapped things up for the Robins with a third. A disappointing night for Oxford away at Coventry. This 25-yard stunner, one of 2 goals the U's conceded in the first half. Oxford pulled a late goal back in injury time, but it wasn't enough. The final score, 2-1.
Emma Wilkinson with our roundup there. Now, we know that vinyl is making a bit of a comeback for bands to release their music, but the real heyday for LPs was back in the 70s with progressive rock and concept albums.
Absolutely, a time when the artwork on the sleeve was almost as important as the record itself. Well, now there's an exhibition in Sussex celebrating one of the most famous cover artists of them all, Roger Dean, who worked with groups like Yes and Pink Floyd. With more now, our report comes from Malcolm Shaw.
We'll remember you, your silhouette will charge the view of distant atmosphere.
The music and images that entranced a generation of young people. No band exemplified the progressive rock movement more than Yes. Their dazzling musical ability perfectly matched by the otherworldly images which adorned their albums. Roger Dean, who lives in Lewes, designed their trademark logo and their covers.
Music is an intangible and wondrous thing, but it's nice to have a means of freezing it, and that's what a vinyl is. It's like frozen music, and you can give it to someone. Also, for me, doing that subtle propaganda of better worlds, doing the 2 things at once was fun, and I thought important and wonderful thing to be involved in. Still do, actually.
Now there's a major exhibition of Roger's work at Trading Boundaries in Sheffield Green. Paintings, drawings and working sketches spanning 50 years, some on display for the very first time. Trading Boundaries is a venue for prog rock bands. Their music still delights the first-time round fans and is even reaching a new audience, shrugging off the criticism that it sometimes tips over into self-indulgence.
There's an incredible joy of doing something incredibly well, whether it's playing guitar, playing keyboards, doing whatever it is you do, painting a picture, and every time you do it, doing it better than you did before.
Roger estimates he's sold around 100 million artworks in the form of cards, calendars, posters and album sleeves. His visions of a future world striking a chord with fans right across the globe. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Lewes.
They're brilliant images. Yeah, you can look at them forever.
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 Covering
Fabulous.
the weather for us now, Lucy Verasamy.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Hello to you again. A very good evening. Well, I think you've got the idea by now. Feeling just a little colder in the coming couple of days. Temperatures set to fall a few degrees, and we will see a patchy frost in the next few nights. Staying mostly dry by day, that's the good news. A fair amount of cloud, but also some lovely spells of autumn sunshine here and there. This is the bigger picture. A huge area of high pressure extending across the north and the west of the British Isles. We just about nudge our way into that settled area of high pressure, mostly quiet and calm in the next few days, taking us into Really quite pleasant to enter the week, if a little chilly. In the next few hours, well, the cloud coming and going, not that we'll notice that much. A bit of a breeze out there will prevent any mist and notable fog forming overnight, and as temperatures slide a few degrees under the clearer skies, it will feel just a little colder. Just 8 or 9 degrees, and that's in urban areas. We could see temperatures fall to maybe just 4 or 5 in rural spots come the small hours, and for those up bright and early, it could well be a frosty and cold start to the new day. Into tomorrow, well, cloud could bring a few rogue showers first thing, and then we're greeted with spells of sunshine, patches of blue sky. Where we've got the sheltered sunnier spots, not feeling bad, but what with the breeze and the cloud cover and that chillier air, those temperatures remain very much on the stingy side, just maybe 13 or 14 degrees at best. A similar situation into the end of the week. It's going to be a cold and in places frosty start on Friday. It's set to remain chilly, but there will be some sunshine. That's the good news. See you soon.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Thank you, Lucy. And in just a moment here on ITV, we do have the evening news coming up.
And Sangeeta, you've got our late news
I
for
have
us
indeed.
tonight,
I'll be here.
Don't miss it, whatever happens. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Enjoy the evening. Take care from us.
See you later. Bye-bye.